Istanbul, one of the world's most strategically important cities, went completely dark. Not for minutes, for hours. Critical military communication systems collapsed across Turkey's western defense corridor. Air traffic control systems flatlined. Naval coordination networks vanished. And according to emerging reports from regional intelligence sources, this was not an accident. This was a Russian electromagnetic pulse weapon demonstration that just exposed a vulnerability nobody in NATO wanted to acknowledge. Welcome to Legal Lens USA. I am your host, David Reynolds. What you are about to hear will fundamentally change how you understand the balance of power between Russia and NATO in the Eastern Mediterranean. The next several minutes will connect pieces that mainstream outlets either cannot or will not assemble for you. Before we go any further, if you are new here, hit that like button and subscribe right now, because we cover developments like this before the major networks even understand what happened, and we break them down in ways that actually make sense. The incident began on what seemed like an ordinary evening along the Turkish coast. Istanbul, a city of over 15 million people straddling two continents, represents far more than just Turkey's largest metropolitan area. It sits at the choke point between the Black Sea and the Mediterranean, controlling the Bosphorus Strait through which Russian naval vessels must pass to project power beyond their landlocked positions. The city hosts critical NATO infrastructure, houses Turkey's primary naval coordination centers, and serves as the communications hub linking Turkish forces stationed across Anatolia with command elements in Europe. On the night in question, defense installations across Istanbul's European side were operating under heightened alert status following escalating tensions between Ankara and Moscow over conflicting interests in Syria and the southern Caucasus. Turkish air defense batteries positioned along the coast maintained continuous radar sweeps. Military communication relays processed encrypted traffic linking frontline units with central command. Naval vessels docked at Aksaray maintained readiness protocols for rapid deployment. Everything appeared normal until approximately 9:30 local time, when the first systems began experiencing inexplicable failures. Air traffic control radar at Istanbul Airport, which handles both civilian and military coordination, suddenly displayed nothing but static interference. Controllers initially suspected equipment malfunction. Then the backup systems failed. Then the tertiary systems went dark. Within minutes, civilian power grids across western Istanbul began flickering. Not gradually dimming, as would occur during standard blackouts. Flickering erratically, as if the electrical infrastructure itself could not maintain consistent current flow. Turkish military communication networks, linking defensive positions along the European coastline to central command facilities, experienced cascading failures. Encrypted radio frequencies went silent. Satellite uplink systems lost synchronization. Even hardened underground fiber optic networks, specifically designed to resist conventional electromagnetic interference, reported severe signal degradation. The disruption spread with alarming speed. Within 20 minutes, power failures extended across Istanbul's European districts, affecting millions of residents. Within 40 minutes, reports emerged from Edirne, near the Bulgarian border, describing similar electrical anomalies. Within an hour, Turkish defense officials were privately acknowledging to NATO counterparts that something unprecedented had just occurred across their most strategically vital territory. Iranian state media and regional outlets closely monitoring Russian military developments reported claims that Russia had conducted a successful test of an advanced electromagnetic pulse weapon system targeting Turkish infrastructure. According to these sources, the weapon deployment originated from Russian naval vessels positioned in international waters off Turkey's Black Sea coast. The weapon responsible for this disruption represents a technological capability that fundamentally challenges conventional understanding of modern warfare. Traditional kinetic weapons, the missiles and bombs that have defined military conflict for over a century, destroy through physical impact and explosive force. They demolish buildings, crater runways, sink ships. Their effects are visible, dramatic, and easily documented. Electromagnetic pulse weapons operate on an entirely different principle. They generate intense bursts of electromagnetic radiation that do not destroy physical infrastructure, but rather incapacitate the electronic systems that modern military forces depend upon for communication, coordination, and combat effectiveness. Most people understand electromagnetic pulses in the context of nuclear detonations. A nuclear weapon detonated at high altitude generates a massive electromagnetic pulse as a secondary effect of the explosion. This pulse can disable unshielded electronics across hundreds of kilometers. But nuclear EMP weapons come with obvious drawbacks. Their use represents nuclear escalation with all the strategic implications that entails. The international response to nuclear weapon employment, even at high altitude, specifically to generate electromagnetic effects, would be severe and immediate. Russia has invested heavily in developing non-nuclear electromagnetic pulse weapons that can achieve similar disruptive effects without crossing the nuclear threshold. These systems employ conventional explosives, combined with specialized electromagnetic flux compression generators to create intense electromagnetic pulses, comparable to nuclear-generated effects, but deliverable through conventional missile systems. The technology involves compressing magnetic fields to extreme densities, then releasing that energy as a directional electromagnetic burst. Think of it this way. A conventional explosive generates its destructive power through rapid expansion of gases, creating pressure waves. An electromagnetic pulse weapon generates its power through controlled release of compressed electromagnetic energy, creating electrical surges that overwhelm and permanently damage unshielded electronic components. The distinction proves critical. Physical structures remain intact. Concrete walls stand. Steel frameworks hold. But the computer systems controlling air defenses fail. The radar arrays tracking incoming threats go blind. The communication networks coordinating responses collapse. According to technical assessments cited by regional defense publications, Russian electromagnetic pulse weapons have achieved sufficient miniaturization to be deployed via cruise missile platforms, allowing standoff engagement from hundreds of kilometers distance. These weapons can be launched from naval vessels, strategic bombers, or ground-based systems without requiring the launching platform to penetrate defended airspace. The technical specifications reported for Russia's latest generation electromagnetic pulse weapons indicate capabilities that should concern every NATO defense planner. The systems allegedly generate electromagnetic pulses with field strengths exceeding 50,000 volts per meter across target areas spanning several square kilometers. To understand what that means, consider that most civilian electronics are designed to withstand maybe a few hundred volts per meter of electromagnetic interference. Military systems employ hardening measures that increase resistance, but even well-shielded military electronics typically cannot survive sustained exposure to fields exceeding 10,000 volts per meter. 50,000 volts per meter represents an order of magnitude beyond what standard military hardening can protect against. The pulse duration, measured in microseconds, proves too brief for conventional surge protection systems to respond effectively. By the time protective circuits detect the surge and attempt to shunt excess current away from sensitive components, the damage has already occurred. Russian defense publications have described these weapons as capable of permanently disabling electronics within the primary impact zone, while causing temporary disruption across a significantly larger secondary effect radius. Permanent damage means affected systems do not simply reboot once the electromagnetic pulse dissipates. Circuit boards are physically damaged. Microprocessors are destroyed. Affected equipment requires complete replacement rather than mere reset. The strategic implications become clear when considering that modern military forces depend entirely on electronics for nearly every combat function. Radar systems track threats. Computer networks process targeting data. Encrypted communications coordinate unit movements. Precision-guided munitions rely on electronic guidance. Navigation systems determine positions. All of these capabilities evaporate under electromagnetic pulse attack. According to Iranian sources closely monitoring Russian military developments, and this is critical, regional intelligence assessments suggest that Russian naval vessels deployed to the Black Sea in recent months have been equipped with these advanced electromagnetic pulse weapon systems, specifically to demonstrate capability against NATO infrastructure in Turkey. The sources claim that the Istanbul incident represented a calibrated demonstration designed to prove that Russia possesses the ability to blind Turkish air defenses and disrupt NATO coordination networks without firing a single kinetic weapon. The evidence supporting these extraordinary claims comes from multiple channels. First, the pattern of electrical disruption matches theoretical electromagnetic pulse effects far more closely than it resembles any conventional power grid failure. Standard blackouts propagate along electrical distribution networks in predictable patterns as overloads cascade through interconnected systems. The Istanbul disruption affected military installations and civilian infrastructure simultaneously across geographically dispersed locations without following normal grid topology. Second, Turkish officials, while publicly attributing the incident to technical failures, privately acknowledged to NATO partners that the disruption characteristics were inconsistent with any known natural or accidental cause. Third, and this is where the story becomes genuinely alarming, Israeli defense technology analysts who examined the incident data provided assessments that validate core elements of the Russian capability claims. Let that register for a moment. We are not talking about Russian propaganda outlets making exaggerated claims about their own capabilities. We are talking about Israeli defense technology experts, professionals whose job involves protecting their nation against precisely these kinds of threats, acknowledging that the observed effects in Istanbul align with Russian electromagnetic pulse weapon deployment. Dr. Yaron Hadar, a senior researcher at a prominent Israeli Defense Technology Institute, stated in analysis shared with regional security publications that electromagnetic pulse weapons represent one of the most significant asymmetric threats facing modern militaries, because they can neutralize technological advantages without requiring equivalent investment in conventional force structures. Hadar specifically noted that Russia's development of deliverable electromagnetic pulse systems means that NATO forces can no longer assume that air defense networks, communication systems, and electronic warfare capabilities will remain operational in conflict scenarios. Drawing an analogy that makes the vulnerability clear, Hadar compared electromagnetic pulse weapon employment to cutting all the phone lines and smashing all the computers in a military headquarters while leaving the building standing and the personnel unharmed. The infrastructure remains intact, but the ability to actually conduct coordinated military operations is destroyed. In modern warfare, that amounts to complete operational paralysis. That assessment comes from an Israeli defense researcher, not a Russian spokesman. When experts whose professional mandate involves countering Russian capabilities acknowledge that those capabilities represent genuine operational threats, the implications demand serious attention. If you are watching this and you understand what this development means for NATO force projection capabilities, for Turkish strategic autonomy, for the entire security architecture in the Eastern Mediterranean, then share this video right now and hit that like button, because this analysis is not getting the attention it deserves from outlets that should be covering it. What does this mean strategically? This is where the incident transforms from concerning to genuinely destabilizing. The entire foundation of NATO's defense posture in the Eastern Mediterranean rests on technological superiority. Turkey fields advanced air defense systems purchased from both Western and Russian suppliers. The country maintains significant military forces, but has always relied on qualitative advantages in sensors, communications, and precision strike capabilities to offset potential numerical disadvantages against larger adversaries. Electromagnetic pulse weapons directly attack that assumption. If Russia can blind Turkish radar networks, disable communication systems, and disrupt coordination infrastructure from standoff ranges without ever entering defended airspace, then Turkey's technological advantages evaporate. The expensive air defense batteries become useless if their radars cannot track targets. The advanced fighter aircraft become ineffective if ground controllers cannot coordinate their deployment. The precision munitions cannot strike targets if the targeting data networks are offline. This creates a strategic vulnerability that Russia can exploit without firing weapons that would constitute obvious acts of war. An electromagnetic pulse strike leaves no crater. It kills no personnel. It creates no dramatic imagery for news broadcasts. But it achieves operational effects comparable to destroying dozens of military installations through kinetic strikes. That asymmetry creates profound challenges for NATO response planning. How does the alliance respond to an attack that disables military infrastructure without destroying it? What constitutes proportional response to a weapon that paralyzes defenses without producing casualties? These questions do not have clear answers, and that ambiguity represents strategic advantage for Russia. The implications extend beyond Turkish borders. American military bases throughout the Middle East and Mediterranean rely on the same electronic systems that proved vulnerable in Istanbul. Air defense networks protecting these installations against missile and drone threats depend on radar, communications, and computer processing. Naval vessels operating in the eastern Mediterranean employ sophisticated electronic warfare suites, satellite communications, and networked combat systems. All of these capabilities become liabilities rather than assets in an electromagnetic pulse environment. The United States military has studied electromagnetic pulse threats for decades, primarily in the context of nuclear weapon effects. But the emergence of deliverable non-nuclear electromagnetic pulse weapons creates an entirely different challenge. Nuclear employment triggers massive retaliation and escalation. Conventional electromagnetic pulse weapons might be employed as first strike capabilities to blind defenses before following up with kinetic attacks, creating new operational approaches that existing defense doctrine does not adequately address. Russia knows this. The demonstration in Istanbul, if the reports prove accurate, serves as a message not just to Turkey, but to the entire NATO alliance. The message states clearly that Russia possesses the capability to neutralize NATO's technological advantages in the opening moments of any conflict, transforming what alliance planners assumed would be a high-technology conventional war into something far more chaotic and unpredictable. According to Turkish government statements and NATO official responses, the electrical disruptions affecting Istanbul resulted from cascading technical failures in aging power grid infrastructure, combined with unusually high seasonal demand. Turkish energy minister announcements attributed the blackouts to transformer malfunctions at key distribution nodes that triggered protective shutdowns across interconnected systems. These statements emphasized that all affected systems were restored within hours through standard emergency procedures, and that no evidence existed of external interference or hostile action. NATO spokespeople, when questioned about the incident, reiterated confidence in Turkish infrastructure security and characterized suggestions of Russian electromagnetic weapon involvement as unfounded speculation designed to create unnecessary alarm. Pentagon officials, speaking on background to defense journalists, dismissed electromagnetic pulse weapon theories as technically implausible, given the energy requirements for generating effects on the scale reportedly observed. The conflicting narratives, Turkish and NATO officials attributing disruptions to mundane technical failures, while Iranian sources and regional intelligence assessments claim Russian electromagnetic weapon demonstration, created exactly the kind of strategic ambiguity that benefits Russia. For many defense analysts, the mere fact that such an incident occurred in Turkey's most strategically vital city, affecting both military and civilian infrastructure simultaneously, represented a concerning development, regardless of ultimate cause determination. The absence of definitive evidence proving external attack does not eliminate the possibility, and the strategic implications of Russia possessing such capability persist, even if this specific incident resulted from conventional failures. Whether deliberate demonstration or opportune coincidence, the event highlighted vulnerabilities in electronic infrastructure that modern militaries cannot easily address. So where does this leave us? It leaves us at a moment where a single reported incident has exposed fundamental questions about how NATO forces would function in an electromagnetic warfare environment that degrades or eliminates the electronic systems upon which everything depends. 7 hours of darkness across Istanbul. Military communication networks collapsed. Air defense coordination systems offline. These effects, whether achieved through Russian electromagnetic pulse weapons or through catastrophic infrastructure failure, demonstrate the fragility of the technological foundation supporting modern military power. Turkey operates some of the most advanced air defense systems available. Those systems proved useless when the network supporting them went dark. The United States maintains global military presence through technological superiority and networked combat systems. Those advantages disappear under electromagnetic pulse attack. Israel has built its entire defense doctrine around qualitative technological edges over numerically superior adversaries. Israeli experts are now warning that electromagnetic pulse weapons threaten to erase those edges. This is a story that continues developing, and Legal Lens USA will keep you updated as new information emerges and as the strategic implications become clearer. If this analysis helped you understand what is actually at stake in this development, share it with someone who needs to see it, and drop a comment below. Do you think NATO has credible countermeasures to Russian electromagnetic pulse capabilities right now? Or has this technology created a strategic vulnerability that will take years to address? Let us know what you think, because this conversation matters, and your perspective matters. This is what one reported electromagnetic pulse demonstration, confirmed or not, has accomplished. Defense planners across the alliance are now forced to confront the possibility that the electronic systems they have spent billions developing and deploying might be neutralized in the opening moments of any serious conflict. The answers are not clear yet. The defensive responses are not deployed yet. But the question has been asked loudly through 7 hours of darkness in one of NATO's most strategic cities.